What's up, Wizards? Got some Duskmourn pseudo spoilers for you today. Yeah, in yesterday's video, the first preview video of the season, I had a lot of people in the comments basically saying like, "Oh, you missed this card, you skipped that card, whatever." And on all these cards, I had not, in fact, skipped. We just already knew about these cards. But we did that video like 2 months ago when they first previewed a little bit of Duskmourn, and I think a lot of people either missed it or forgot about the cards. So this little break in preview season, this one-day break, I think would be a good time to kind of do a little primer, talk about all the stuff we've already seen from Duskmourn, reintroduce some people to it, and just introduce other people to it for the first time. So it's going to work a little bit like a normal preview video. I'm going to start with the stuff that's kind of whatever, and then work my way up to the stuff I think is really good. But honestly, there's not that much mess stuff. It's just like commons and uncommons we got to go over first. Like, nowhere to run here. 2 mana, 1 and a black for an enchantment with flash. And whenever it enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -3/-3 till end of turn. And creatures your opponents control can be the target of spells and abilities as though they did not have hexproof. Ward abilities of those creatures do not trigger either. So, cool little, not only an enchantment, that's nice. So it's permanent that you can bargain away or otherwise sacrifice to whatever, who knows, right? Or maybe it just triggers all of your enchantments matters stuff. But it's also a removal spell with flash in this case. So I feel like normally this would just be sorcery speed, right? That would be the bad thing about the card, but there's really not a bad thing about this card. Flash, -3/-3, so it gets through not only the hexproof and ward, but indestructibility as well. That's really cool, and as long as it sits on the table, your opponent's creatures effectively don't have hexproof and ward, which is really, 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 really cool. So even the first card of the day is great today, but there's another removal spell I want to look at called Chainsaw. 2 mana, it's 1 and a red for an equipment, it's an artifact. It equips for 3, and when it enters, it deals the 3 damage to up to 1 target creature. Whenever 1 or more creatures die, it gets a rev counter, and equipped creature gets +X+0, X being the number of rev counters on Chainsaw. So it counts all creatures that die, your own, your opponent's, whatever. So first of all, in Commander, this probably gets a lot of rev counters relatively quickly, but even in a game of Standard, maybe, like some sort of Aristocrat's pile where you're sacking your guys, you're making your opponent lose their creatures because you sacked your guys somehow, you know what I mean? Bone splinters effects and stuff like that, right? So, maybe this could actually get like 3-4 rev counters on it relatively quickly, and then like whatever creature it's on gets big. So it can even be on like a 1/1 and you have like a 5-power dude. And it just sits there on the table, but it's also 3 damage. It's pretty good. There are some artifact decks right now in Standard that might be interested in this just because it's a removal spell that's also an artifact. So I like this a good bit. I wanted to point it out. But Cursed Recording is another artifact in red. 3 or 4 mana, really. 2 and 2 red for an artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, put a time counter on recording. Then if there are 7 or more time counters on it, remove them counters. It deals 20 damage to you. However, tap it. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, the next time you do it, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So, it gets time counters pretty quickly, but you can effectively cast 12 instants or sorceries before it's, really it's 6 instants and sorceries, right? But effectively that's 12 if you're copying them, right? Before it actually kills you. And it might not even kill you if you're able to gain some life somehow, right? So that's okay too, I guess. But still, I kind of think that there might be like a weird deck for this card, but mostly it just looks like funny red rare of the set, but copying spells is pretty good. It might be like the reach you need in a burn deck or something like that. But next is Fear of Missing Out. A lot of red in the beginning stages of this video. This is 1 and a red for a 2/3 enchantment creature that also is a nightmare. Whenever Fear of Missing Out enters, draw a card, or discard a card first, then draw a card. It also has Delirium. Whenever Fear of Missing Out attacks for the first time each turn, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, untap target creature. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So you don't get full-on Relentless Assault. You only get to re-attack with 1 creature, but that's okay. And you get an ETB trigger, right? If you are trying to get Delirium, this helps you get it by letting you discard cards. So if you discard another enchantment creature, you are half of the way to Delirium, like right there. So pretty okay, right? But I don't think it's actually quite got the chops or anything. I think we'll try it out just for fear of missing out, but I don't think it's going to get its jersey. You know what I'm saying? Next is Twitching Doll. This is the mana dork of the set. It's also the buy a box promo. 2 mana, 1 and a green for a 2/2 artifact creature, Spider Toy. You can tap it and add a mana of any color and put a nest counter on Twitching Doll. You can also tap it and sacrifice it to create a 2/2 green spider creature token with reach for each counter on Twitching Doll. Activate only as a sorcery. Cool thing about this is that it's each counter on Twitching Doll, not each, nest counter specifically. So if it's got +1/+1 counters, or I don't know, ability counters or whatever, then you get a spider for each one of those, and that's really, really cool. I'm only just now noticing the giant spider up under its nose. So probably get away from this art. I hate it. This is the mana dork of the set. There's 1 or 5 in every single set. This one's actually okay, though. Moving on to Toby, Beastie Befriender. This is 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 1/1 legendary human wizard. When it enters, you get a 4/4 white beast creature token with this creature can't attack or block alone. As long as you control 4 or more creature tokens you control have flying. So one of, in these Caretaker Talent decks, probably, Caretaker's Talent can copy this 4/4 token, which is a good idea, probably. It just feels like you're always copying like some dinky 1/1 token, or like a clue token, or something like that in those decks. Maybe sometimes you'll copy the Eurobrows Forge token. I've seen people do it, but in any case, I always have people tell me you can't do it. You can't do it. I've seen people do it. I've done it, but anyway, this is actually a pretty sweet little guy in a lot of ways, mostly because that tokens deck, that Caretaker's Talents deck, exists in the first place. So I think it might, again, just be a 1, maybe 2 of. That deck is pretty stacked on 3 drops right now, so I'm not too sure. A lot of people comparing this to Lovestruck Beast. I see it, but I also don't think it's a great comparison. But again, man, in those decks where you're super token heavy, and there's a ton of them in Standard right now, then yeah, this probably does some work. All creatures having flying, all your tokens having flying, excellent. And it's pretty easy to get there too. Come Back Wrong is up next. 3 mana, 2 and a black for a sorcery. Destroy target creature. If a creature card is put into a graveyard this way, return sacrifice. Yeah, sorry, I was reading the word sacrifice. Gotta get my reading game on. Destroy a creature. 3 mana, sorcery speed, destroy a creature. If a creature card is put into a graveyard this way, return it to the battlefield under your control. Sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. So, sorry. So, sorcery speed, 3 mana, destroy a guy is not great. I mean, it obviously isn't the worst Magic card you've ever seen, right? But it's what, Touch of Death, the portal card? That's not very good. But when it's also a shallow grave, that's amazing. It seems really, really good. Part of me wishes this were instant speed for pretty obvious reasons, but you could also like target your own guys that are being targeted by removal on your turn. I guess that would be cool. Get like an ETB trigger, but you can get your opponent's ETB triggers and like big attacks in. That seems cool. So I don't know. On the floor of it, it's just like get rid of that guy, but at the ceiling, it's get rid of that Atraxa, and I'll take that. I'll take it for a turn. 7/7 flying haste lifelink, and I'll get a bunch of cards from it. It's Hallie, 7/7 trample haste. It's cool, and I get a couple of cards from it. So yeah, against exactly the right things. This is pretty good. I also like Deep Cavern Bat for, again, some reasons, but we'll move on to Leyline of Hope here. This is 4 mana, 2 and 2 white for an enchantment. If Leyline of Hope is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. That's what Leylines do. If you would gain life, you gain that much life +1 instead, as long as you have at least 7 life or more than your starting life total. You know what I mean? Creatures you control get +2/+2. So we didn't have the context necessarily of a good black-white life gain deck. When we first saw this, there was a black-white life gain deck in Standard, wife gain, weird. But yeah, we had it. We had Amalia and a bunch of other cards, right? Lunarch Veteran, but now we have pretty definitely better life gain deck in Standard. We still got the Deep Cavern Bat, but now we have Zorline. We still have Amalia, but now we have, all kinds of bats that gain life and stuff too. So I think that this card is more relevant than we first thought it was going to be. And it's cool that it's going to be part of a cycle. There will be more ley lines than just this, but I think there's definitely a deck in Standard that wants the full amount of these, if only so it can get +4/+4 once you have multiples, right? So I don't know. Altogether, really good card, I think, here. But Wandering Rescuer is up next. This is the card that people accused me the most of missing yesterday, because it was part of the presentation. But again, we'd already seen this card. We'll go over it again. It's 5 mana, 3 and 2 white for a 3/4 legendary human samurai noble with flash and convoke. It's also got double strike, a lot of cool abilities, and other tapped creatures you control have hexproof. They will just... I guess this just makes your opponent have to do everything when you announce your attack step before you actually attack. Move into attacks, and then now you have to do everything. So that's like a little annoying, but it's not that annoying. What I will say is that it's probably going to just save one of your creatures during your combat step an awful lot and put a 3/4 double strike on the table. It's a lot for like a save one of your guys' spells. It's so much. Usually those spells cost 1. This costs 5 times that to get a 3/4 double. But, you know, I could still see it seeing some play in like a White X mid-range deck in Standard or something, but I'm honestly not that convinced that this is as good as I would love it to be. But honestly, I've had about enough of the Wanderer. So these last couple of years, I'm glad that the Planeswalker, the 4-mana one, rotated out. But this one looks a little bit more tame, although still a pretty good Magic card, honestly. So we'll see what she does. Doomsday Excruciator is another Magic card that we've seen. This is 6 mana, all of it black. So 6 black pips for a 6/6 demon with flying. And when it enters, you kind of just cast Doomsday a little bit. If it was cast, each player exiles all but the bottom 6 cards of their library face down. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. So you're going to lose faster than your opponent, but you're still outdrawing them for 3 or 4 turns. That's pretty good. And I guess the idea here is that you want to have ways out of milling them. Maybe you have a Realm Breaker or cast this and then finish them with a Jace, something like that. And I actually think that's a actionable game plan. I don't think it's that bad. 6 mana is a lot for any Magic card in Standard, but you know, we see plenty of decks that can get there already. We see decks that get to 7 mana. It's not a big deal. And having effectively a 2-card combo, have your Jace out, right? And then cast Doomsday Excruciator and resolve it. It's probably not actually that hard. It's not that hard. I refuse to believe that's difficult. So I don't know. I kind of like this guy. I think he might have some applications. Sucks that he's not exactly Doomsday and you get to like choose what cards and all that. But, you know, this is still pretty cool. So we'll see. There's a number of pretty sweet demons in the set. And note that we just got that like demon demonic tutor, which is really redundant to say. But yeah, the demonic tutor that goes and gets demons. Or gets whatever you want. So that seems like it would go really well to go grab this. Just a sweet guy, man. I think he's actually got some life in him. But Enduring Tenacity's next. My favorite like black creature we've seen in the set so far. This is 4 mana, 2 and 2 black for a 4/3 enchantment. Snake Glimmer. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Whenever Enduring Tenacity dies, if it's a creature, return it to the battlefield under its opponent's control as under its owner's control as an enchantment. I'm trying to go too fast. Sorry. But yeah, again, I love this card, man. I'm not even sure that it's good. But I know that it's what? Sanguine Bond? But you get a 1 mana discount. And even if your opponent has a removal spell, you still get a Sanguine Bond. So it just seems really, really good to me, unless they exile it or whatever. So it is on curve to be exiled by Sunfall immediately, but I'll still take that chance a lot of the time. I just really, really like this card, dude. And again, we've got a lifegain deck in Standard, and this is a suitable sort of finishing maneuver for it. We've already seen that Starscape Cleric, the little guy that, like, you know, whenever you gain life, your opponent loses 1 life, that guy, like, that's in decks. And it's actually a little machine gun. It's a little oozy street sweeper of a dude. So I like that guy. He closes out games a good bit. Both on my side and against me sometimes. I just can't stay mad at him. So this is a way to do even more damage than that guy's already doing and double up with that guy. So, and you know, you play this guy on 4 and then maybe on turn 5, you offspring Starscape Cleric. Let's go. So yeah, I really want to play with this card like so bad, dude. But Overlord of the Hauntwoods as we round into the really good stuff. This is 5 mana, 3 and 2 green for a 6/5 enchantment creature. That's also an avatar horror. It's got impending 4 for 3 mana, 1 and 2 green. So you cast it for its impending cost. It has 4 time counters on it. It's not a creature until the last one gets removed. At the beginning of your end step, remove a time counter from it. Whenever Overlord of the Hauntwood enters or attacks, create a tapped colorless land token named Everywhere. That is every basic land type. So if you miss Topiary Stomper, you know, like this is probably what you want to do in your domain deck. As soon as you get the colorless land, your ley lines immediately cost 1 mana. You know, seems okay, dude. Your herd migrations are much, much better immediately on turn 3 because it's every basic land type. So for domain, this is really good. But I don't, you know, we've been using the food thing. It's a Heaped Harvest. That's the name of the card. You know, 3 mana comes into play, go grab a land. And then you can sack it because it's a food. And when you do that, you also go grab a land. So that's 2 lands for 5 mana in installments, and you gain some life. People have been really liking that card, and I do too. So, you know, but this is a 6/5 that gets you every basic land type immediately. So that seems good. And then also when it attacks, there's also multiple effects that allow you to copy tokens in Standard, notably Caretaker's Talent. So draw a card and get ramp. Seems good, dude. So I think this card's definitely got a lot to do in standard. But moving on to the last card that we'd seen already, but just again, kind of a refresher course for you, is Screaming Nemesis here. This is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 3/3 spirit with haste, and when it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target. So better Boros Reckoner already. But if a player is dealt damage this way, they cannot gain life for the rest of the game. They might as well have an emblem that says they cannot gain life for the rest of the game. Seems really, really good. Especially on a 3 mana 3/3 haste, which we have seen better stats than this. You know, I mean, 3 mana 3/3 is not great. Throw haste on it, we got a Godric, right? And Godric's got a text box on him too. Sees no play anymore. He did for a while there, but you know, mono red is different now, so don't see too many Gaudis. But this, I think, is a better card than Gaudi. It'll come out of the graveyard. It'll come out of the sideboard a good bit. If these life gain decks are a real force to be dealt with, but even if they're just life gain effects that your opponent might have access to, and they're not a strictly life gain deck. We just talked about Heaped Harvest. That deck also will play Herd Migration. There's plenty of ways to gain life in that deck, and this makes sure that now your opponent's not going to be able to, you know, if this is somehow dealt damage, you know what I mean? Then now they're not going to be able to use those effects to kind of stay in the game. So, you know, lifelink will be turned off forever, so their Archangel Elspeth doesn't do as much, you know, making the lifelinkers and such. So ultimately, yeah, I think this is a very playable card. Probably try it out in the main deck, but again, if nothing else, for the sideboard. Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one of the best cards, if not the best card previewed so far in the set, even with all the stuff we got yesterday. I think this is screaming to see some play, not just in standard, but possibly beyond. But that is all for the refresher course, everybody. I tried to keep it as brief as possible. A lot of us have seen these cards before, but you know, any new things that we've learned about them, especially since Bloomburrow came out sort of in the interim since we've seen these cards, you know, it's important to point out. So hope you enjoyed it. If this is your first time seeing these cards, or me for that matter, hope you subscribe to the channel because it is officially preview season. No cards today. So again, good time for this, but starts fresh again tomorrow morning and all through next week with previews. And we're going to be doing them on the couch. We're not going to be in this more, you know, informal format. We're going to be making whole actual YouTube videos out of it. So come check out the channel, everybody. Check out the Patreon and the link in the description and all that stuff. You can hit us up on Twitch. We're going to be doing at least one preview thing live over the preview season, if not two. So make sure you don't have to be subbed. I guess just follow over there on Twitch. Link in the description to all the things I'm talking about. And finally, link in the description, one more, to yesterday's preview video, which is the first official preview video of the season. But that's enough information for now. You enjoy the rest of your day. I love you. I do. I'm Dev from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.